Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please?
Covering both sides of the big issues with the analysis you trust on News Radio 1040 WHO.
We've already talked about TikTok and how our kids get lost in that. And the first encounter we had with that is when the teen and the preteen, they're both teens now, but was when the teen and the then preteen were doing weird dances and we thought they were having a seizure. No, really. But then, of course, COVID came along, and depending on what part of the country you were in, you were either locked down for a very, very long time or you were locked down for a short amount of time. The result is we now have a mental health crisis in our teen population. Helping us to dig into all of this is Teresa Lusk. And Teresa is on our Newsmaker line right now. And you're very welcome, Teresa. How are you?
Hi, Simon. I'm great. Thank you for having me on.
You're welcome. So what is happening in our teen population?
What's happening, Simon, is that we had young teenagers who were already dealing with some type of mental health issue before COVID. And then we get into COVID, we isolate these kids, we take them apart from their social circles, from their family, and then they begin to watch the parents, the household worry, and they're dealing with their own concerns, their own depression. And so it really just magnified what the younger generations were dealing with. So now you would think that we're getting back to normal, but the crisis is there, and a lot of it also has to do with social media.
Right. I mean, I want to get into some of that. So we've never met, you and I. I have a picture of you, and I would never ask a lady her age, and I'm not going to, so you can relax. But it's my birthday today, so I am now even more much older than you than I was yesterday when we arranged to get you on the show. I don't remember there being a teen mental health crisis back when, twice. Back when I was a teen and back when my daughters, who are now in their 30s, were teens. I don't remember that. What's happening to us?
Yeah. Well, I believe that a lot of it has to do with parental involvement. You have the parents now who are just as addicted to social media. They're not as involved and connected in many ways to their children. We get comfortable with them. They enjoy social media. They enjoy it. And so we think that they're okay. But a lot of this starts in the home. How much are we communicating? How close are we staying to our kids? Are we talking about their day? And so there's a lot of isolation that happens, and it's hard to notice it. It's hard to notice it at first. You just get comfortable. You let your child they go off on their own, and it just starts happening more and more. Before you know it, they've shut down the closeness and communication with mom and dad or caretakers. And then they get into this world where there's so much pressure going on in social media for this age.
Do we think they're okay, or are parents now regarding the internet, the phone, whatever, as a very cheap babysitter? You know, let's be honest, teens are not easy, right?
Correct.
I hate you. Slam door. Teens are not easy. And so if they're not screaming, I hate you, and slamming doors, then a lot of parents are like, oh, peace. It's peaceful. We'll just leave
Correct.
that. Is that happening? Am I oversimplifying it?
No, it actually is happening. In some of the previous interviews and in my coaching, I tell people, parents, you have to stick with it. You have to tell your kids, you know what, we're going to put away our phones and we're going to have family time. Even if your kids have a fit, even if they start, having a meltdown, it's okay. Stick with it. It might get a little rough for a week or two because they don't like for you to take them from that, but it's for their well-being. And if a parent begins to draw closer to their child, say, hey, I'm going to give you limited time, because science has shown, the data has shown that if you spend, these younger kids, if they spend more than 4 hours a day on social media, it actually increases the risk of depression and suicidal ideation. So there's a lot that's linked to that. So, yes, I do think you need to put away the phone and tell your child it's going to be limited and we're going to do family time.
Right. I mean, we have a no phones during meal time rule. We have that.
Yes, that's absolutely wonderful. If parents understood that right there, what you just said, if they took that seriously, if they understood that no matter how much your child is saying, no, I don't want this, or, I'm bored here, I don't want to talk to you, and you stick with it, you would begin to see a shift within a couple of weeks, but you would have to stick with it. But families, there is data that shows that families that eat together have just a higher rate of emotional well-being, and a lot of the other troubles that you deal with they're not as likely, because there's something about staying connected and close with those who love you and keeping the communication lines open that does affect our children. I have a 16-year-old son, and I asked him about this when I started researching the data, and I said, what do you, in your opinion, think is going on? He said, I believe it starts in the home. It starts in the home with the involvement of the family, and he is 16 years old.
Well, that's good. Good for him, and well done you. Although, as a girl dad, I've got to say boys are easier, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
And everyone who has girls will go, yes, absolutely right. The other thing that people need to be aware of is what the kids are actually doing on the phones. Again, when my eldest two, both in their 30s, who've now made me grandpa, when my eldest two were not in their 30s, when they were at home, the computer, back in the day when there was the family computer, or if they were really lucky, they had their own computer. Anyway, they were on the computer in the living room.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
In the living room.
Mm-hmm. Good for you, Simon. It sounds like you had the wisdom before people were just losing their minds.
Did I see? Look, believe me, this is not a look at me, aren't I great? But to me, it was just so natural. I've told this story on the air before. When my youngest biological daughter, when she went off to high school, is a huge high school in Orlando, 4,000 kids, right? Mm-hmm. So basically 1,000 kids a year from 9th grade through 12th. And week one, I went in to see guidance. And hi, Mr. Conway, how can we help you? I'm like, nothing. I don't need anything. I just need you to know that I'm watching. That's all you need to know. She's not going to slip through the cracks. I'm watching. And that was it. That was the only reason I went in. And it was perfectly pleasant. I wasn't threatening in any way. I just wanted them to know that here was a parent who was paying attention. And I was very aware in a school of that size, there would be lots of parents that were not paying attention. And I think that's a huge part of it as well. I think you just have to be involved, don't you, Teresa?
Absolutely. You're making the points that I share in the interviews and with parents in my office. You are sharing exactly what I tell them to do. It sounds like you are a parent that cares and is concerned. And listen, let's just be honest. Parenting is hard. Having to have a full-time job and then coming home to watch over your kids, it's hard. But that's something that we are supposed to be doing. And so if we put away a lot of other things in life that are really just not that much of a priority for the sake of our kids' well-being, because most of the adults are going, what happened to this generation? And we think it's all them, but the truth is what I said earlier is it starts in the home, and you're proving that point, Simon. You're telling me you are giving away the principles of a healthier child. Now, I will say this. You can be a very involved parent, and your child can still make certain choices.
Of course.
Right. So there are some parents out there who say, well, I did it right. They probably did. So it might happen, but we still want to do our part so that if that were to happen, we can say, I did what I knew to do.
I did not raise angels or perfect children. Trust me, I did not. But now they've come around. They're fine young women, They've got families of their own. They're great. And, everything's wonderful, but it's important that you are involved. Here's what scares me, because while I'm looking at, when I invited you on, I'm looking at this piece out here with the latest teen text codes.
Oh, yes.
And without this in front of me, I would not know what this was at all.
You and me both.
Some of it's really hard. I'm not going to go into the some of it's really hard. But, PIR, parent in room. PAL, parents are listening. 9 is parent watching. 99 is parent gone.
Yes.
You need to know these things. I'm not living in a time where I need to know these things anymore. Right. But if you have a teen in the house, you absolutely need this code list. Absolutely. And you need to look at their phones and see if it's on there. You need to do it. Teresa, fascinating conversation, scary conversation. If people want to find out more about you, where do they go?
I am on Facebook and Instagram or my website at Teresa Lusk Show.
At Teresa Lusk Show. That's TeresaLusk Show.